The first stage is to really understand what biodiversity we have, what is there. So we will study, we will really get to grips with what can be affected by a project. And then we will work to avoid the impacts to that biodiversity, or to minimise them where we can't avoid the impact. The conundrum facing all ecologists is what to do when you can't avoid an impact. We recognise that projects go ahead for all sorts of different reasons. In these cases, we have to find some way of compensating for that loss, or even offsetting that loss of biodiversity. So one of my favourite examples for compensation is the work that we did on the Channel Tunnel rail link on High Speed 1. And it's related to the impact of that route on ancient woodland.
It's very difficult in Kent, as we found on HS1, to avoid ancient woodland, because even though the majority of our route was in existing transport corridors or in tunnel, there was still a lot of woodland which was very close to the route of High Speed 1.
Traditionally, to compensate for the loss of woodland, you would plant trees and shrubs in a farmer's field, but that will only generate the habitat of trees and shrubs in a farmer's field, and it misses the diversity, the richness that you get in old and well-established woodland communities.
What we came up with was a strategy to reclaim as much of the ancient woodland soils as we could, which contains a lot of the seeds and propagules, which are the plants which exist in the ancient woodland, and transplant those onto new planting sites with the aim of speeding the ecological restoration.
The trees that we've put in here have also been grown from seed collected from the local woodlands. And this was to help them to develop, to make sure that they responded to the environment here, and also to protect the genetics of these communities.
When we looked at these woodlands, quite a few of them were coppiced woodlands. So as part of our restoration process, we removed some of the hazel stools and transplanted them into our new sites. So that formed part of the whole translocation process.
Ancient woodland is a finite resource, and as such it is something which you cannot just pick up and move. However, I think you can establish a woodland that has very similar characteristics and that certainly aesthetically looks like the full woodland community. For High Speed 1, we have a woodland that has a canopy with oak, a coppice layer with sweet chestnut and hazel, but we also have a field layer that is rife with bluebells, with anemones, with yellow archangel in the spring. Those are the bits that are traditionally very difficult to get and will only really come with time. The beauty of biodiversity offset, and one of the key things that it has developed thinking of, certainly in the UK, is a way of measuring biodiversity, a way of having a common language for biodiversity. And I do think that that is going to be essential if we are ever going to get the attention to issues of biodiversity loss that are so important to us today.